Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @SheKnowsArsenal. If you were here just a couple minutes ago, then you were here for the watch along. Thank you so much for being there. It's so fun and so chill. Like, we just hang out and just talk about whatever. So I love that. And if you're just showing up today for the first time on SheKnowsArsenal, welcome. You know, we're going to be doing a group stage reaction. So we're going to be reacting to pretty much everything that happened during the group stages of the Euros. And to be quite honest, I'm surprised that there's so much to talk about, because really in the group stages, sometimes it's a little bit like, methodical, just, this business as normal. And then there's been so many good performances that I didn't expect to happen. And it's popped off from the very, very beginning, which I loved, so lots to talk about. And I have the pleasure of spending some time today with George. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. Hey, George.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So have you been finding the Euros like exciting? Not so much. Did you expect there to be so much to talk about?
Not really, because I think group stages normally are pretty boring, but there's enough surprises here. I kind of had this thing where and breathe after today, because today it just ended with a bang. The group of death became the group of fun, and you just had goals galore, just absolute drama on the timeline. I don't know about you, but people were sending me messages like, "Oh my God, are Hungary going to do it?" And the whole France drama, and then are Germany going to actually go through without, kind of losing the entire time? And yeah, it was just a mayhem end, but a lot of really great performances throughout, and I think a lot of talking points, which is good for us. It gives us content.
Exactly, 100%, especially because nothing is really legitimately happening with Arsenal at the moment. It's nice to fill in with some of this kind of stuff. So I love it. And ultimately, I've been really looking at this group of death, because it's not very often that we get a very star heavy group, knowing, you know what I mean? Usually it's who's kind of going to win it. And I'm very excited that we've got an opportunity to see good players play against each other, good teams play against each other from the very beginning, and this group did not disappoint today. Portugal playing against France, and Germany playing against Hungary. Both games were crazy going on at the same time. I can say that I'm a little bit disappointed in Portugal, but ultimately all three of those teams go through: Germany, Portugal, and France.
Yeah.
And then Hungary. I mean, are they a little unlucky not to go through, considering how, good they've played,
They're very lucky to go through. Look, Hungary, I mean, we'll get into our big, claims, but Hungary made a case for themselves in this tournament. No, guys, I'm not a youth coach or scout. I do coach on the side, but no, I'm not official with anybody. But no, Hungary gave a really good account of themselves, and it was, like you said, kind of in those group of deaths, you kind of know who's going through. But I would argue Hungary probably played the most consistently out of that entire group. When you look back in terms of where they are in pedigree and then how they actually performed, it was kind of amazing. And they all did it without Shobazlai, who's their main creator as well, where you look back and you're like, this little team that were they going to be the Iceland kind of storyline? And but yeah, it was just so exciting, I think. And I think they're hard done by. If I'll really be honest with you, I wanted them to be the Iceland, and I actually thought they could go far. So it was awesome. But I think Germany are very lucky, but also that's a really tasty lineup with England now. So lots of tales to talk about there.
100%. So let's go ahead and get into our best and worst of the group stage, all of those great things. But before we get started, you guys make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to interact with us and let us know what you think. If you think I'm right, because I'm always, no, I'm just kidding. But, tell me if I'm wrong.
It's
That's
the show, right?
fine.
She knows Arsenal. It should be
She knows
Arsenal.
You can give your opinion, but I'm right. No, I'm just kidding. But let's go into the best goal. This is kind of like one of those ones where, it's hard to look past the shit goal really against Scotland, isn't it?
Well,
they already claim it's the goal of the tournament already. I think it's a little early
too.
I mean, yeah, I think I want to go with that one just because it's like it was so good, and it's the one that got replayed over and over again. But that doesn't mean that there weren't some other good goals in there. What do you think?
Well, okay, so I've got a tough one. I think solo goal, what we're talking about, Lewandowski's goal today deserves a mention. The way that he did, it's probably harsh on Schick, because when I look at those goals, I think a lot of them are instinct. And when you have a look up and he's off his line, and you give a punt, they look spectacular. But I think in terms of just solo efforts, the way that Lewandowski was able to kind of isolate his team, the kind of the moment in terms of the flow of the game when they needed a goal, and him pulling out to that left-hand side, dribbling past a couple players, and then slotting it in far corner. That's my poster goal. So I think that's probably Lewandowski's my favorite goal of the tournament. You could maybe look at some team moves where I think Holland and Italy have probably been the best teams, and their team moves have been really quite nice in their patterns. But I'm going to go with Lewandowski because I'm a solo moments kind of guy. And he wins it for me.
Yeah, Yo-Yo saying Yarmolenko's goal against the Dutch.
Modric's was quality too.
Was nice as well. And when you talk about like the Netherlands, this is a team that I think I had huge questions about. I still kind of do, just about their defensive capabilities. But in a tournament where the best teams, your France's, your Portugals are playing pretty pragmatic football, even England to a certain extent, I like to see that the Dutch are deciding to do something a little bit different, and you do see that free-flowing football going forward. And there were some goals between like Depay and Wijnaldum. There was also like a goal that was like Depay, Malen, Dumfries. Like most of their goals have been more team goals, and it's been kind of like a nod to the old way that we're used to watching, like even Arsenal play. So I really have enjoyed watching them. What do you think their capability is of how far that they can go? Like with a team that has maybe some questions about the defense, they seem to not really have any issues scoring goals.
Yeah, well, I think that's a big part of Frankie de Jong. And, when I look at, Holland, look, they've surprised me because I didn't think they'd perform as well as they have. So I've got to give them their plaudits, because when I came to the tournament, I was like, okay, they've got no leader. I'm worried that they're just a nice team. And I worried about kind of in their midfield. So not only is their defense kind of poor right now, but I worry about the gaps that they have in the team. Like right now, when you do even analyze, Frankie de Jong's doing a lot of progression, where I kind of saw the Ajax of old in him, really. And, I'm really happy for him. He's had such a poor season in Barca, but that could be kind of reminiscent of their team in general. And he's kind of reminded people why he can be a world-class number 6. And you don't always have to have, even though I'm a pace and power kind of guy, and everybody knows this really on past episodes, I appreciate a good, technical player and a little deep lying playmaker. And, Frankie de Jong's kind of the poster boy for that right now. So in terms of how far can Holland go, though, I think they're too reliant on individuals right now, where really Frankie de Jong is actually kind of carrying that team, in my opinion. While they've had some great team goals, that's in their philosophy. I don't think they've been challenged by a good coach or a good team quite yet. they really were quite favorites despite them coming in with poor form into the tournament. I think they could probably go quarters would be really good for them, to be honest. I don't know how far they make it out of the group. I might have to refresh myself on the updated knockouts, but I would say I'm not looking at them as a semifinal team, certainly. So they're just a good team, and I think they'll struggle against really good opposition.
Mm-hmm. We have to see how they are able to cope with, teams with really good offenses. I struggle to see how they'll cope without Van Dijk and, that type of thing, but we'll see what happens, but let's get on to the things that I like to talk about, which are people making mistakes and us laughing at them. So, biggest mistake so far. I mean, it's fresh in our mind.
There's a clear winner for me.
Dubravka against Spain.
Oh my God, that's a FIFA glitch. Anybody that's played FIFA knows that's horrific, isn't it? He's playing volleyball. He's not even. And what's he doing? Like, just put it over your bar. Like,
I don't know what he was thinking, but I mean, the first thing I think is just like, is there a Newcastle fan I can speak to and banter? Because it's just like he belongs to you. Like, what's happening? But what Newcastle fans were saying, like he's been so integral for them, like this past season that just ended. But then to see him just like batted into his own goal was kind of shocking. And even the second goal, I kind of felt like maybe he could have done better, in the next goal that came, so. But it was funny. I'm not going to lie. I did laugh a little bit. I did chuckle, because it was just kind of like, what's he doing? But I can think of maybe another couple, all the chances, all the chances that were missed by Moreno and Murata, Eminem. There's so many you can barely. I mean, the missed penalties that both of them have missed, like wide open shots, they went, it's so weird because they score 5 goals today, but I still think there's questions around their clinical finishing. What do you think about Spain and the fact that Eminem just seemed to miss so many chances?
I like that, Eminem. Well, okay, Murata is a weird, he doesn't help himself, does he? Like, there's a lot of people looking at what he does for the team and the greater part. He has that Lacazette syndrome, right? Like he's one of those players that does a lot of work for the team, but just fundamentally the efficiency is just so horrific. You don't know what you're going to get. He's such a confidence player where he could go on a run right now and be a tournament top goal scorer. Like that's what he could do. He's such a fluky kind of confidence player in general that he could have that, but then he has the penalty misses, and you get so frustrated because they don't mix. He's got so many big boobs. Murata's one of the players where if you look back, he's kind of like Giroud. He's gonna have a great YouTube compilation, but he's managed to get some great moves in his career without ever really impressing to the degree that he should have. And I worry about the Spain team because look, I think Luis Enrique is a really good coach. I actually do think that they're they have one of the brightest talents in the world in Pedri right now as a team. And, for a team that was dominating possession, they needed that output. And, to call on, Eminem, to quote your nickname, it's kind of depressing to go from like David Villa in terms of what he's given us as fans for tournament output and memories to Murata. I don't know. Is there a bigger downgrade? I don't really know because
shocking. It's really horrible. Shocking. Yeah. And I'm just like, the both of them are just out there and I'm like, which one was it? Which M was it? They're just missing chances.
They're just vibing.
Yeah, they're just vibing on misses, but then we can also talk about maybe Yo-Yo was saying that there's a back pass in the Denmark game that was impressive. So, there were some other big mistakes. I can think about McGinn. He missed a pretty clear-cut chance, like about 2 yards out against Croatia. So some, even Lewandowski, he had a big miss before he scored his goal, so
yeah, crossbar open goal miss.
Exactly. So yeah, but I think Dubravka versus Spain has to be the one because it was when a goalkeeper makes a really big mistake, it's usually ends in a goal, like, so, and it's just so like, what was he thinking, but yeah, so those are our biggest mistakes. So now let's talk about the best player so far, like somebody that's impressed you, somebody that's, done really well. I'll let you start. I'm sure we can think of a couple.
Yeah, I can't. So, look, I think
Besides
Frankie
Bukayo
DeYoung.
Saka.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bank that bias, but like, make no mistake, we did say he would play himself into this team, and we did
Yeah.
say he would play himself into the tournament. But yeah, we'll rein in the bias. But yeah, no, Frankie De Jong has to be in there for me because just of how I viewed Holland in terms of you can't go from thinking that they would really disappoint to them being maybe one of the best form teams at the moment in the Euros, where I would say them and Italy right now are the best form teams, going into these knockouts, and that's hugely on Frankie De Jong. That's totally on him. Another one is definitely Lukaku. Between him and Lukaku, I really struggle because Lukaku's probably in form right now, the best number 9 on the planet, and
Mhm.
he's just been carrying on what he's been doing at Inter, and I think a lot of people carried their past, maybe biases really with what he did in England, because kind of the opposite of what he was claimed to not have in Timberland boots, not having a first touch. I would argue at this tournament, he's shown everybody that he can play back to goal. He's just a monster. When he gets going, there's no stopping him. There really isn't. So if you give him 10 yards on the run, it's kind of game over for you. And when you have Kevin De Bruyne kind of spamming crosses to you, that's a lethal partnership. Where I think Belgium
Mhm.
as a team are quite poor actually in terms of their midfield cohesion. I think that partnership is going to spam their way into the quarters really. And if they do go farther, it's totally on Lukaku, really. I think taking his chances. And, I said this in one of my prediction videos where the Euros and knockout tournament in football is so much about a moment kind of thing. It's not
Mhm.
like a season. You can't look at really season consistency and really system play in a knockout tournament. You have to be, the gaps need to be really tight. You need to make your distances tight. These low block teams, like we quoted Hungary earlier, they're going to be a favorite on everyone's lips, but it's because they have this low block and they keep their distances tight, and you have to pick your moments. And so yeah, I think best player for me is just Lukaku. He has to edge it, but Frankie De Jong is really, really close, and it's only because he's brought that kind of team up to a standard of being faves in the tournament, where I thought Holland would really struggle. And then maybe Renato Sanchez has really impressed me in terms of the minutes he got, because he's been excellent, but I just don't think his impact on the team has been as great as Lukaku's or Frankie De Jong. So probably, yeah, and of course Bukayo Saka, deserves a mention.
Pretty much. I mean, we're just talking about runners up here. It's definitely Bukayo Saka, but I'm thinking Gini Wijnaldum. I think he's been very good
Mhm.
for the Dutch, between him and Frankie de Jong and Depay, my guy. It's like, I think they've been, where you said like Renato Sanchez has looked great. The impact from Gino Wijnaldum has ended in goals, and things like that. And that's important, So for me, Gino Wijnaldum is a big one. The reason why I probably won't say anybody on Italy is because they're more like the team. It hasn't really been like one standout person. So maybe we can keep them for maybe like the team conversation. But I definitely think I'll go with Gino Wijnaldum because this is a team that's not really like, they're the next level down from like the teams that people are really talking about, but he's really pushing them forward, in my opinion. And it's not like I think he's the thing about Wijnaldum is I don't think he's like the most gifted player, but he's so experienced. He knows what to do. And I mean, what can you really say about him? I think he's been really influential. I mean, you could probably off of the last game maybe throw Modric in there. I think he's been good too. Maybe not as good as Gini Wijnaldum, but he's been good too. I do have to say Lukaku has been not surprisingly good because we know
Mhm.
Lukaku, we know he's really good, but man, I wouldn't want to be a defender watching him run toward me.
Yeah,
Like, I'd be scared, like, because the guy is he's like a machine, so, but I think I will give it to Genie because when I watch them play, I'm just like, he's so important. And if they didn't have him, I don't know where they'd be, to be honest.
And I think
So,
France Pogba, just before we move on, he deserves a
yeah,
mention. Like, I
yeah,
don't think he hasn't done enough where his team have realized the results. So that's the one thing. But, on an individual performance level, France Pogba is a different beast. And, he kind of shows people, what he could be, really. I think Man United continue to misuse him. Happily for us, I hope that they continue this. But yeah, France, but in terms of the roles that he's done, I think France in general have actually underwhelmed. And, I kind of
yeah.
thought they may with this Benzema dynamic. I really didn't know how that would play out just in terms of team chemistry. I think there's no
Mm.
doubts on the player, but in terms of how he comes into a team that really relied on their togetherness in past tournaments. And, I think Paul Pogba's been the quarterback for that team, saving them on, kind of poor performances. I wouldn't say that they've been bad, but they should have done better in a lot of the games that they've played. And Paul Pogba's a big reason for them saving face. But yeah, you got to go with like Lukaku or Frankie De Jong as your major ones, and Genie himself with his goals have been immense.
Mm. Honorable mention to Gosens. I think he had a
Mm-hmm.
really excellent game against Portugal. I think his is more about form right now than anything in particular. Like, you know what I mean? I think once people figure out and you don't have what's his name? You know who I'm talking about, the Wolves guy. I was just talking crap about him.
Neves
Um, the
or
no, the right back,
Semedo.
Semedo.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say Semedo tax, but
Yeah, Semedo. Like when you don't have him, it's different, but I would say
yeah,
honorable mention just him because he did have a really excellent game, but it's going to become more fewer and far between, in my opinion, just because I think it's once you get further into the competition, it's like you kind of have to have a good game every single game. So some of
yeah.
these players I think will fall off. But I think I agree with kind of like everything we've already said. So you guys make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Let's talk about the best team. The best team. I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first.
Is this one also a debate? Because I think Italy have been the best team by far in
Yeah.
the tournament. Like
Yeah.
their attacking patterns, the way that Mancini, it's no doubt because I think Mancini's the best coach. The one thing actually you can maybe look at
Mhm.
all in these teams, they have really poor coaches in general. Like he's
Yeah.
so clearly the best coach
Yeah.
in the tournament. But it deserves special mention because when you look at it, right? They had Verratti who was injured midway through the group stages, right? And he came back injured and put in that kind of a performance. But in order to kind of balance Locatelli, who's actually not really an advanced eight in kind of role for his team in Sassuolo. He was very much a deep lying playmaker, but you've got Jorginho and the way that they coach their attacking patterns with Spinazzola and kind of their opposite flanks and Berardi using his pace on the side, who, has had an excellent Serie A season with Juventus, probably their best player, to be honest with you. But making those profiles fit took coaching for sure.
Mhm.
And from a team that lacked really output in general, I think one of the biggest misses of Italy is they don't have a reliant goal scorer, but their midfield is so dominant that they're just going to outplay everybody in the tournament with their midfield, and that's okay. So Italy have been definitely the biggest team. Again, I will say Holland based on form, though. I want to give a special mention and a shout out to them. But I just unfortunately I don't give them the same praise because I think that they were in a group that they really should have shone, and I again think that Frankie De Jong has been a big part of their success. So if I'm looking at the best team and cohesive, it's got to be Italy.
Yeah, it's definitely it has to be Italy. It's hard to look past them, but I do want to give an honorable mention to Belgium, who I think has looked good. I know that they weren't like killing it, the way that Italy was, but even missing key players like De Bruyne and Witsel, if they can get them going, I think the team will be hard to beat. Although, you look in the back line and you're like looking, I'm like, oh, so, these guys are still here, that kind of thing. But ultimately from the back, that
Yeah.
back line from everybody forward, that looks pretty good. If you can squeeze something out of Hazard, you might have a chance. But I think they've looked good even despite not being perfect, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, and look, I think special mention to one of the smaller teams, Denmark, who I was really impressed with
Oh
in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
like their pressing structure. Like they've been actually pretty good, and I think they've been coached very well, to be honest. I think they've got the best pressing, to be fair, in the tournament, really. Like looking back, some of these teams, Italy and Holland that we're talking about, have been on the ball, but I think Denmark off it have been exceptional. Really, if they had outlets, they'd be a serious dark horse. That's a dark horse. If we,
Yeah.
the idea that Italy wasn't, a dark horse before was a fun narrative, but like Denmark, if they had outlets, they would be a serious contender. So I wanted to give them a special mention. But yeah, it's really got to be Italy for the most part, because Italy, just in terms of form and how they've played, I think people say that they move side to side and it was just possession football. I'm not sure I subscribe to that idea. There was a lot of great movement ahead of the ball, and fitting Berardi in without Verratti and having Locatelli as your 8 takes some serious coaching. And so I think, yeah, Italy's got to be the best team, I think.
Yeah. Sometimes and this is just a sidebar, and I just have to get this out here just because it just irritates the crap out of me. But I just don't understand how I know we watch the Premier League, and the Premier League is, I know we watch more than that, but just like in general, the Premier League is like the main show. But I don't know how we can see like somebody like Verratti play the way that he does, like dictate the midfield, total class, like, up there with the best midfielders in the world. And then look at somebody like Declan Rice and be like, yeah, he's worth 80 million. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, do you see? Like, sometimes I don't understand. Like, I get that Declan Rice works really hard, but like, let's be real. He's not levels, is he?
No, we've definitely got EPL glasses. It's like it's our version of drunk goggles, isn't it? Like, oh, she looks great, or he looks great, whatever is your speed. And then it's like, I think we do this with our players. We do overrate them. I think it's all part of narrative, though. So I can't like act here like I haven't done it. As he shouts for Bukayo Saka in a joking way, but kind of serious. Burrito shouts of the tournament, but yeah, I think it's kind of amazing, like you said, that we don't value pretty much play outside the Premier League. And you know what? Lukaku's my favorite example of that. He's in England and he has no touch. He's wearing Timberlands. He's horrific as a player. 1 year in Italy with Conte, and he's taking it seriously. And now he's the best back to goal striker. I don't know if you guys remember the narratives, but he couldn't play back to goal with Mourinho. That was the narrative, that he was horrendous. In fact, everybody wanted him sold because he had no touch, apparently.
Yeah. And look at him now.
Yeah, a year later, and he suddenly got a touch. He ate some special pill that Syria, it was all that pasta that made him lose weight too. Anyways, like there's so many narratives that we do as fans, but you know what? Like that's our job, isn't it? We can't all be robots. So I'm here for it, to be honest with you. And you know what? It does actually. I think what international football does for us, though, is it lets you kind of evaluate your players not in that EPL mindset. So you get to lose some of, you're looking at things too close, I think. And international football is very different. It's a lot slower, and I think it's a little bit more tactical. And so what you're going to see is a lot of these like leagues like Serie A and Ligue 1 and even the Bundesliga, who have maybe more space in general, particularly Serie A. I actually would love to do a study. If you looked at it, I think most of the Serie A players are balling at the tournament here. And I think that's because the league is very conducive to kind of international football. And that might be an interesting comparison, right? So like, we traditionally think even with, Champions League, we get a chance to see these teams come up against each other. But I think the speed of play is just so different that it suits people that are in Serie A. So, but Declan Rice has been a special something. He could go into the biggest disappointment if you really wanted to go into that and to how hard. Because I rate Declan Rice, I do. But
I rate him as like in the Premier League sense of, if I'm thinking about like, well, who are the best midfielders in the world? He's nowhere near that. But like in the Premier League, because the assignment is different. It's, about, like we always talk about power and pace and athleticism and getting stuck in. And I think that's why players from Italy kind of veer away from playing in the Premier League, because Jorginho, this is another sidebar. Jorginho is a class player, you guys. Like when I see Chelsea fans being like, he's the worst player ever, I'm like, well, he's not being played correctly. Like, and he's basically like a conductor, but it's hard to do that when the CDM in the Premier League has to be somebody like a Conte, a ball winner type of person. But if he sits deep and he has the space to dictate, he's a very good player. But again, he would probably be much better in Italy. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
just a
narrative.
sidebar.
Narratives. They rule football. They give us our drama, they give us our storylines, and they give us content. So I'm not going to complain, but I'm going to laugh at them, and we'll discuss and see, who has egg on their face at the end of the day. Because you know what, Declan Rice, it's going to come down to a decision in England. I don't know. Even Harry Kane, who should we have that conversation because
Well,
he's
no,
been
let's hold
poor.
it in. Let's hold it until biggest disappointment. Let's hold it until biggest disappointment. Yeah, for sure. You guys, we're going to talk about Harry Kane, and we're not gonna
Hold back.
walk on eggshells. We're going to talk about it. Okay, so biggest surprise, we already kind of touched on it, and one of my biggest surprises has to be Hungary. I'm just in the group of death. Could have easily just rolled over and did a turkey, but they didn't. They made a game out of every single one of those games against France, against Portugal, against Germany. And I think they're unlucky not to go through. I mean, the team and togetherness, and even I thought that they would struggle away from home because I thought their fans, their 12th man was really galvanizing them and helping them go forward. Even without that, playing in the rain and monsoon type weather against Germany, they were still able to tie the game. It's totally unlucky not to go through. And for me, they were my biggest surprise, by a lot. I really thought that they were just going to get destroyed, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think you can look past any other team outperforming expectations beyond them, right? So I think in terms of surprise, it's really got to be them, and maybe what, as like a small joke, maybe VAR, that the fact that it can work, you
Yeah.
know, it's
Or
it's
that
it's
Anthony
amazing.
Taylor and Michael Oliver can actually referee games if they're
Yeah, it's
not in the Premier
amazing.
League.
Yeah, if they're not influenced by English fans, it's amazing what they can do. But no, like VAR can work. It can be very speedy, and it's like shock horror. It's actually the people using them that maybe is the problem. But anyways, not to go down that narrative like slide. Yeah, I think Hungary. It has to be Hungary because they've been immense. Their 5-3-2 low block has just been kind of a sight to behold, really, in a sense. And they did it a different way than Denmark. I think both really needed outlets, but you've got two teams who I think Denmark is probably my actual shout. Now that I think about it, I didn't expect
Yeah.
Denmark to do that well, and their
Yeah.
pressing has been actually immense. And they both just need an outlet, like a reliable runner. You're kind of inside forward or just an outlet of some kind, and they're doing some serious damage in this tournament. Hungary are going through, I think, with Szoboszlai and an outlet, or even just Szoboszlai. Like they gave everybody a run for their money. So yeah, maybe mine was just Denmark, just to keep it a little bit different, because I think their pressing structure has been absolutely amazing. And you know what? Look, I don't want to get too much into it, but having a big player for them, deal with what they did, but then to continue to play, not just,
Mm-hmm.
kind of beyond that, but, their thoughts are obviously with, Christian Eriksen, and, all our thoughts are really, but to have such a major thing happen like that at a tournament and not derail your group stage campaign is so impressive, just to the mentality, but also how they did it. They were pressing, they took the initiative. Like it wasn't that they were a low block, and not to hammer them, because I think you've got examples here of two ways to play. But yeah, to take the initiative as little old Denmark to press in the way that they did after what's happened, it's been immense.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I mean, just so happy that, things are looking better for Christian Eriksen. And that was a very scary thing that happened. And, it just kind of gave us a lot of perspective, so I completely agree with that.
Maybe
And
special mention to Wales too. I don't know
oh
about
yeah,
you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was just
Okay.
about to click
Perfect.
on that. Wales, yeah. I mean, I'm not interested in really watching them play. It's like, okay, whatever they're on, I know some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, Ramsey. You guys don't care about Ramsey anymore. Sorry. Hate to say it to you guys, but I don't. But ultimately, they've done well.
Yeah.
They've done well, and they played a decent brand of football and got through relatively easily. So hey, what can you say about them? I mean,
Yeah.
and Daniel James, somebody who I've always felt this about him. I think he's just at the wrong team. When you watched the Leeds documentary and you saw that they were a second away from being able to get that transfer done for him, then you
Yeah.
think about how much better he would be in a system like Bielsa's. And you see him play in this tournament and you're like, he's just not in the right team, so Wales definitely gets an honorable mention, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be honest, I had them not finishing second. I had them finishing third at best, and because I just didn't know where they would get the goals. But yeah, so like they definitely deserve a mention. But you know what? They kind of did squeak by without playing immensely. They're just nice. So it was weird. It really was a weird group in general, that one. But yeah, they've got the output, so they have to go up there.
Yeah, 100%. So those were our biggest surprises. Let's get on to our biggest disappointment.
You're already smiling.
I don't know why I'm the negative.
I'm here for
so
this.
Funny. So it's so funny because I know we're going to talk about Harry Kane. But I think you could throw Turkey in there. I mean, a lot of people, dark horse. Like, not really. Like, they just weren't. It's so funny how deceptive, like, the friendlies and stuff can be before, and then they come into this competition and with the talent that they have, like, it's not like they were a decent group of players that just happened to get results. Like, some of those are some names.
Big names.
Those are some names.
I said in my prediction, I said Turkey should be a dark horse. They should, because of the talent. You run through that team: Demirel, Kagalar, right? Celik, Yazizi and Yilmaz, who those three just won Ligue 1, by the way. And, when you start to add, they've also got, who else do they have? They have Sendez Under, who's also a great outlet. Like Kalhanoglu, who's had an excellent Serie A season. Like, you run through that team, that's a talented squad. And, their goalkeeper, Kakir, I'm butchering their names, but he's been excellent, But what I think happened with them is a couple things. International pedigree was something I highlighted before this tournament. That does play a role. So if you're an inexperienced team and you've never been there, done it, it's going to be tough. And Turkey as a team, they've never really gone far internationally. So it was definitely, a big stage where they did choke, right? And so international pedigree is going to play a role really in any tournament, but it helps more so in knockout competitions. And then I think another thing really is their team, they didn't play to the ethos of their team. They had possession-based players, and they sat back in a low block. That doesn't make sense to me. We've talked about this before, that you have to play to your ethos of your club. And that goes for international football. It's a broad stroke that I really use as a fundamental, really principle of mine. If I see a team that doesn't play to their ethos, I'm like, they're going to struggle. And so Turkey did that. They played a low block and they kind of, invited pressure on themselves when they really didn't need to. They had the players to put their foot on the ball and they just didn't do it. So yeah, as a team, they're definitely my biggest disappointment.
Another one of my disappointments, and we were talking about this in the watch along, is it's kind of, it's not really like a person or anything. It's teams that have played with a double pivot. I just feel there's teams that have tons of attacking talent that are playing with these very doubles in midfield that don't add any depth or, anything to your midfield. You saw that Portugal today move to a single pivot. And although I didn't think it really changed their chance creation, I think they needed to switch something up. I think England needs to consider their double pivot, maybe look for some dimension, something, because Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice doing pretty much the exact same thing. If you need a passer or a dribbler or somebody in there to do something a little bit different. So I would say one of my biggest disappointments is offensive teams with a lot of attacking talent playing with a very conservative double pivot that's not really serving their team.
Well, you know what? And I think it gives us a great lesson in terms of one of the other lessons I really talk about on here is where you can't have two players in the same zones doing the same role. And we see this exactly why, as you were describing that double pivot, I was just like, Southgate. And, it's also a matter of not playing players really to their roles. So another one is, Foden. And on a serious level, look, like we do joke about Bukayo Saka, but I'm sorry, everybody. We did, as Arsenal fans, collectively tell you, Bukayo Saka not only deserves his place in the squad by merit, but he will play himself into this team, and there's really a good reason. But like putting Phil Foden on the right, where he hasn't played that way really for City, and expecting him to do a role that's very different, because I think the way that England play is they're actually really quite pragmatic. I mean, I don't agree with it, but it is like their philosophy, really. And
Right.
I think with Phil Foden, you're putting him in a position where at City he's got insane movement in the front line and he's got tight spaces, so he punches things like over 5 to 10 yards, as opposed to having what Bukayo had to do, which he's done for Arsenal on tons of occasions, but picking it up from the halfway line and helping progression 15 or 20 yards. That's what that England team is crying out for right now. And, putting Phil Foden into a spot that really, isn't, that's not his role. I struggle when I hammer him. So yeah, he has played bad, but that doesn't mean he's a horrific player. It's just he wasn't played in the right zone that he was. And then when you have a double pivot with Rice and Phillips doing the same thing, look, it kind of it defeats the purpose, right? So
Mhm.
I think on the alternative view, you actually have Italy, who have been kind of the other team that have shown the opposite, in a sense, where you have Locatelli and Jorginho, and they showed that it could work a little bit. Although I will say Locatelli did end up having kind of one of his more worst games at that aspect. So it shows the importance of just putting balance and synergy, just to maybe bring it a little bit back to transfer season. Like when we do think about these links, this stuff matters, right? And playing these roles for your club teams, they need to kind of be emulated in international football. Otherwise, you're going to have a really poor tournament. You can't expect somebody to do a different role than their club because there's not enough time to adapt. So, Southgate deserves a mention, but it's Kane time, isn't it? I
Yeah,
think the comments want it.
yeah, I mean, let's stick with England and just we
Yeah.
can talk about Kane, but I also want to kind of touch on the Bukayo Saka thing too.
Okay. Yeah.
Before we get into Kane, just really quickly, like just piggybacking off of what you said, it's it's all about like to me the idea that England should just play the players that are perceived as better for their club team doesn't make sense for me because it's more about how they fit together. You have to try to figure out chemistry and you have to figure it out quickly. And for, Saka, he can adapt to different types of way of playing. And I saw people saying, well, it's mostly just because like England's pragmatic and Arsenal is pragmatic. So that's why it works. And I'm just like, yeah, sometimes 1+1 does not equal 2. It's way more than that. And he deserves to be in the team because he works the best with the players that the chemistry just works. I thought Sterling and Saka running in behind, but they can also come short as well. Whereas Foden is more of a behind the ball type of player, and he doesn't add that next level of being able to do something a little bit different. And then you have Jack Grealish in there causing chaos. So again, like it's not just about, well, Jadon Sancho should be playing because he plays for Dortmund and he's ranked da 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 da. One, if he's not doing it in practice, which I think Southgate has intimated, like he keeps saying that Saka's doing it in practice, maybe he's not focused. But nevertheless, like Rashford hasn't really showed anything. Sancho hasn't really showed much. But when Bukayo Saka came out there, he did his thing. So I really don't want to hear any more of like Saka's just there because da 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 da. He's there
there on
because he
merit
deserves
too.
to be there.
This,
Like he played really well.
Yeah, and you know what? Because you said let's forget what they've done for their club. So let's be consistent. What he did for Austria on merit, let him be in the team. So like if I want to be consistent in maybe our criticism, right? So let's remove club seasons then if we're not going to acknowledge great seasons. And by the way, Bukayo had a similarly great season. You know, Look, Bukayo himself as a player, we have got a world-class player here. And, I think people are really afraid to say it, but we simply do. I've chucked a couple stats here trying to look at, why, but, he's got the highest non-penalty XA and XG, or expected goals and assists, in Europe's top 5 leagues. He, in terms of output, has the most goal and assist output for any U21 in the Premier League since 2019. In all competitions, rather. So it's just, he's there on merit, and as a profile in terms of what this England team needs, he's everything in terms of progression that they need, right? If you're going to stick with a double pivot that's going to have progression issues, which I think England does, Saka's a cheat code. He can go in and out both sides. His footballing intelligence is his greatest quality. You don't play every position, bar center back and goalkeeper, and get a goal and assist output in every single one, by the way, without having great IQ. And I just think that he's able to adapt to people and force his game, unlike many players in that England team. So as great as what Sancho is doing, I haven't seen him, for example, do it at right wing back. I haven't seen him do it in, other positions bar right wing and left wing, which is a great thing to have, right? That's not the point, though. I think the point is we need to find somebody that gives the best cohesion with the group, right? And, I think Jack Grealish was a big thing. I'm really glad that he's learned his lesson really quick, Southgate, in terms of putting him in, because that was
Yeah.
dumb. And I don't know why he didn't do it before, but it was dumb. We as Arsenal recognize that. But look, I think Bukayo Saka, if we're having a debate here, I want to see him play. And I think most of England do, because they've seen what we've been saying for the entire season, right? And I think that we let narrative drive footballing opinion way too often. And ultimately, Bukayo Saka, forget the season and the outputs comparing things. On the international stage, he's done it. Jaden hasn't. So regardless, there is precedent and merit, and he deserves his place. And, I think he deserves to keep it too as man of the match. So we'll see.
I mean, you can't drop him now. Like, I think it would be like very difficult for you to drop Saka, but somebody else who they need to make a huge decision on is Harry Kane. What's going on? Like,
I'm drinking
I think it has to. I mean, come on, this guy he's clearly distracted from his move or whatever. He's not fit either, yeah.
He's not fit.
Slow.
So okay, I think, you know what? There's a couple instances. Look, Harry Kane's playing center back, I think, in the system. No, it's harsh, but he's dropping in way too deep. This isn't Spurs. You don't have to do that. Just stick up into the middle of the box. We've got guys that can probably give you the ball, but his touch is not great at all, right? And the one thing that really worried me is, oh gosh, I forget who they were playing. Who did England play second? I think where Reece James swung it across, and Harry Kane for Tottenham, he was onside clear, and he just had the ball wide, and it was an open goal, really. And a Spurs Harry Kane finishes that. A Spurs Harry Kane finishes a lot of chances that have come, to be honest with you. Even the other night, with Saka in that performance, there's a couple times he could have slipped Saka, and he just isn't sharp. He's a yard behind everybody. And look, I'm sorry, I know he's the poster boy, but I've even said it in some of my other predictions. Look, you cannot wait for somebody to go into form. This isn't season football. This isn't where you're waiting. It's knockout football. So play the person in form. And you know what? Dominic Calvert-Lewin deserves a shout. If you're asking somebody to drop deep and facilitate play, right? And you also want to get on the end of crosses, and maybe even an aerial ability, but even linking the play. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has done that for Everton and had an excellent season. He deserves a chance, and he deserves kind of the opportunity to replace Kane and just put him on the bench. I don't understand what the big deal is.
The thing is he should have played against the Czech Republic. I just feel like Southgate missed a step there. You could have easily, you saw in the first two games that Kane was not ready. Like, it was obvious. And, at first I was like, well, maybe you can't drop your captain. But because you were kind of like in a good position, you knew that, like, you just had to be professional. He could have played Dominic Calvert-Lewin and seen if he could get a goal or whatever against the Czech Republic. Now you're going to play against Germany. Are you going to drop him now? Like,
you can't, right?
Now you can't. Like, so you made a mistake. But Kane has been such a disappointment. Like, not for me really, but like for England. Like, inject it, like, he's horrible, but it just seems like he's so not there with the team, and that could be a big issue, because you have one game to make it work against a Germany side who
are dangerous.
Yeah, they're still dangerous. I don't care what anybody says, it's peak, like, I'm like, you got Harry Kane out here playing like freaking center back there trying to play make. Can you get in the box? Like, can you enter the box?
Tell the lad, he's got a pivot. He's got two people trying to do progression. We don't need you. Like, stick up
maybe
front.
Because Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips are banned from being able to hit forward passes. Maybe Harry Kane is supposed to drop back and do those forward passes.
And even our fullbacks too, apparently. Even like the England fullbacks, they seem to be just chilling, kind of on the side. We see Reece James just relaxed, and I'm like, lad, go in Thomas Tuchel's system. Like, you're bombing on, play.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
they need some. He's gonna need to be brave. You know,
Needs to fix
it's
up.
difficult. You know, but your best players behind the striker have been Bukayo Saka, Jack Grealish, and Raheem Sterling. And if you go around and start messing it around now, you could be out before you know it. You know, but guys, let us know what you guys think. We just did our biggest disappointment, and so based on what's kind of that is horrible. Where's my question mark? Hold on. Hold on.
You know what? Little disclaimer too before we just jump on is probably Santos, the coach of Portugal, deserves a mention because I think he's been so bad with that Portugal team. As much as I loved him taking out Bruno, and again another injected moment.
Oh wait, biggest disappointment. Wait, Bruno Fernandes. Before we get wait. Injected. Okay, so this guy is so bad at big games that the only game that he looked decent in was the one against Hungary, which ended up being a bigger game than he probably thought. The next two games that were big games, he did not show up to, and the other one he was dropped for. And what is up? What is up? You can tell what the issue with Pogba is in terms of Manchester United, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have the right people around him. It's not the right fit. But Bruno Fernandes, why can't he show up in big games? What's happening? What's going on?
Did you hear that Mourinho quote too? That we've been playing with 10 players. Talking about Bruno. It's true.
Come on.
In general play, it really is quite odd. Ball striking has given him and many players a career, but Bruno has been really, really disappointing. And also even that coach, I know all too well, being a fellow Greek, of what Santos can do to a team. But it's not been good. It's not been pretty to watch.
I mean, just the fact that they didn't solve the issue at halftime against Germany, and they allowed Gosens to continue to come down that side. I was like, wow, they are shocking.
Yeah.
But has your, since the group stage, how it kind of unfolded, has it changed your predictions in terms of who might make it to the final? Who is the favorite in this tournament?
Yeah, Holland for sure, because I had them, struggling. I had them going through, but I did really have them, I think, struggling in terms of, not being the faves of the tournament, really. Like I said, I think Holland and Italy are the best form teams right now. I don't really want to quite do England yet because they haven't done it to the consistency level as those two teams. But you can thank Bukayo Saka, lads. Don't worry.
Why is it so funny to me?
I love it. But yeah, I think Holland's definitely changed my mind. And maybe I think that's pretty much it. You know what? To be fair, and maybe Denmark were a surprise. So I think if I'm looking at the knockout and the roads to the final, our two underdogs in Wales and Denmark, they're kind of going to be facing off against each other, where they were the surprises, at least for me. And so I think Denmark, I'll change that to them going quite far. I think they'll get to the quarters. I think they'll win that Wales game with their pressing. And, Denmark will definitely do well. Again, Holland, I think, they're definitely surprised because I had them doing poorly. And, that Sweden-Ukraine game is kind of intriguing. They're the opposites and the kryptonites of both each other. Ukraine's got dangerous outlets, and then Sweden on the ball have been really quite impressive, with Isaac being a big reason why they've had an uptick in form. So I think in terms of just changing that side, probably. But look, England are on the best side of the draw. And so,
they are.
Of course, I need them to. Look, I need them to. I called them. It's their tournament to lose, and I can't have egg on my face. I've got some bets with my dad and my brother. So, yeah, they need to win, guys, period. I'm on your side. But they're on the good side of the draw. And I think that left-hand side is crazy, isn't it? When you look at it.
Well, my prediction to win the tournament was frickin' Portugal. So I'm sitting here at moments during that game, are you guys even going to be in the next round? Because at some points they were knocked out, So
my God.
And now I'm looking and I'm like, oh, cool, cute. So first you have to get past Lukaku and Kevin De Bruyne. Then if you happen to get past them,
Italy.
You're probably going to have to play against Italy. So you're out. You're definitely 100% out. I do not see Portugal getting further along in this tournament. So yes, that those group stages have changed my mind a
Yeah.
little bit.
And Portugal's pretty slow, right? So when you're looking at Belgium, who I think they've got a lot of like gaps in their midfield, but they really need somebody to like. Okay, Italy Belgium is going to be an awesome game. I'm already slotting that as my quarterfinals. Um,
Dang, yeah.
and you know what's weird? Croatia and Spain, like the most underwhelming, but like traditionally good teams, are going to have a playoff there, and I don't know if Morata's going to do it. Like I don't know if Eminem will strike again. Like they've barely scraped
Eminem
through.
is just horrendous. Like, it's like you
Yeah,
have to, it's just not good,
they should just
but
stick to snacks. But it's just
I mean, look at this bottoms that, like, okay, so you have Croatia versus Spain.
yeah,
I'm thinking that can go any way, to be honest. It really,
it
really
could.
can. And maybe Spain gets a little bit of confidence from this last game. But even Croatia had a really good game against Scotland. And so these are teams coming off of pretty big wins, with some. I think Spain is one of the youngest teams, and Croatia has to
Mm.
be one of the older ones. So you have some experience going up against some young players. But Spain's best chance is playing their young players, their Ferran Torres, making sure Pedri is involved. I think that one can go either way. And I'm looking forward to watching France bop Shaka, to be honest. Like, I think Switzerland is so
Give him a good
basic.
send off. We need to
Yeah,
complete that
give him a nice good send off so
transaction.
that
So
so that he can go ahead and get his transfer over to Roma, get
yeah,
that done,
send
but
my
is there any
flowers to
way
Harry because he's going to be very upset.
is there
But
any way that Switzerland gets through this?
no, not at all. Switzerland, like they lack outlets themselves, and Zafarovic is like probably their only great point in terms of up top. But look, Switzerland aren't bad. They're a decent team. They're compact, and as much as we love our Granit Xhaka divisiveness. He is a big player for them, and but yeah, France. I think France are built for this, right? So I really think Mbappe is going to have fun against that midfield. And even they've got Kingsley Coman. They've got an embarrassment of riches. No matter how poorly they've kind of struggled in the group stage, France are just have an embarrassment of riches there. So
They're
yeah,
really good in knockouts too,
they
like,
are. Yeah.
that's pretty much like their bread and butter. I mean, look how spoiled we are, you guys. Like, we could in the quarterfinals see France versus Spain,
Mm,
or France versus Croatia, or and then you get further down in there, you could have
yeah.
France versus Belgium or Italy, or we are so spoiled. Like, these are going to be some good games, and then on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, it's looking
Struggle.
like the struggle zone over there. England, if you don't get through, you're
If they
done. You're
don't win the
finished.
tournament, I have said this. I have said this. Shame on you. Like, forget your Southgate tax. Like, the actual individual quality of that team is just stupid. It really is. Look, England's worst matchup actually is Germany here. And
Right.
I don't actually think that's an easy game. I'll be honest with you, Jess. Like,
No.
despite their troubles, Germany are a good team.
I think
Okay.
they'll fancy themselves against England, to be honest.
Okay, so I think how this one will go, right, is Germany, if they try to be on the ball and dominate the ball, I actually think that will suit England because they have the outlets to make them pay for it. I think part of the issue right now is, you've got a pragmatic manager who's afraid to take initiative in Southgate. So he's tried this weird attempt of taking possession football, but he's way too pragmatic with the handbrake on to really enforce that. So he's in this weird in between. Whereas Germany, great on possession, but they just don't have that clinical edge, which is weird for a German efficiency thing, as we talk about narratives. But I think if Germany do gain possession of this, it will suit England actually. So we'll see. England have to go through though. Like I'm putting all the pressure on England. I'm sorry. Like that side of the
Yeah, they
draw
have to.
is amazing.
Like, it's unacceptable not to. They're playing it all coy, like, well, it's fine. No, you need to get through. Because then if you guys, were to get through, then you play against Sweden or Ukraine, who you should beat. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking that if England doesn't make it to the semifinal from here, we have huge questions, around what the heck they're doing. And if you look at the bottom, I mean, Netherlands actually has a really good chance of getting to the semis.
Yeah, they really do. And look, I'm going to put my bets on little old Denmark. They're clearly my dark horse.
Yeah, you
I
like
love
them.
them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what? I'm going to back them. But look, Holland, for all their trouble, I think everybody had Holland going out maybe a round of 16 prior to the tournament starting, and they could find themselves in the semifinal very easily.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, look, Denmark, my little, dark horse that could. I hope that they go far. But look, it's England's to lose based on this side of the draw, isn't it?
It really is, but I would love to see like Memphis Depay running towards Harry Maguire. That would be
Fun.
something, fun for me to watch. I love it. So, but I think we have some good games coming up, and based on this, let's just do okay, so who's your semifinal on the left-hand side,
On
with
the
Italy
left.
and them? Yeah. Who
Ooh,
do you think
okay.
is going to be the semifinal on that side?
Italy, France, for
Italy,
me.
France.
Yeah, and okay, I got outnumbered on my channel, but now that I'm on your channel, I can say why. But I think Italy are going to the final in that case.
Mm.
And, again, I don't think France have been great. You can't discount their pedigree in knockout competitions. But I did say, with Italy and their midfield right now, and Verratti, who just came back from injury, I think the addition of Mancini and that coach is going to be something where we always see these big international kind of stories close to a certain extent. And so I think it's just France's time. They should have brought a lot of their under 21 midfielders. That would have been a much better dynamic, but they didn't. So based on these, I
Stop trying to
do
get
have.
Samari in the team.
I'm trying. He's my favorite player. He should have gone.
I can't.
But yeah, no, I've got Italy and France in that semi, with Italy going to the final, actually.
I'm actually going to say something a little bit different. I think Belgium gets to the semis against France, to be honest. I just have this weird feeling that when Italy gets towards Belgium, like when Belgium will beat Portugal, I know they will.
Yeah.
So you have Lukaku, I just think if he can mess around and get on a roll, he's going to be very hard to stop. So let's just say they stop Italy and they're dead in their tracks there. And it's Belgium versus France in the semis. And then if we go over to the other side, still, yeah, going with England. Actually, no, Germany versus Netherlands in the semifinal. I think England's
No
going to bottom.
way. You think they're
Unless
going to
they play
bottle it?
Bukayo Saka, if they drop him, yeah, they're out. But if Germany, they may be able to squeak by England, and if they do, I think they'll go straight to the semis and they'll play against the Netherlands. But you have England versus Denmark in the semis.
No, I joke, but I think Holland should go through. Yeah, for sure. I'll have England and Holland, and England will win that. So I've got an England-Italy final in my little bets here too. So yeah, look, you're not picking a wrong one if France, if you believe that France will win in that matchup. I just think that midfield and their coaching is just too much. I think France rely on individuals, and I'm a team guy, so I've got to practice what I preach here. I think Italy are the better team, even if they don't have the better individuals. So yeah, and Southgate, even with his tax, look, we've just got the players, and like you said, Bukayo Saka is going to win England the Euros. He's going to be confirmed. I need
Arsenal
that.
fans will be unbearable if that happened. I'm telling you.
I'm ready. Everybody thought I was unbearable with that one good performance, and I started quoting all the stats. Wait till you guys get, Bukayo goal in the final. Okay, I will celebrate that so shamelessly, and I'll be loud. Don't worry, I'll be loud. So yeah.
All the Bukayo Saka memes. I mean, the one with him with his shirt off and with all the other England players, ejected. I loved it, but yeah, I think we're going to have a really good tournament. I think from here on out, it's going to be really good games. So you guys, I'll keep you updated on, the schedule for the watch alongs and all that kind of stuff. And you guys still have more to look forward to. We'll be doing Copa content. And then when the Gold Cup comes around, me and George are going to get together and do something, a North American type show, for all our people that care about that kind of stuff, but yeah, guys, this was a really good stream. I really appreciate you guys being here and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Again, for all of you guys that love George, make sure that you follow him on Twitter at GeorgeV_AFC. And Ball Over Passion is his show and his podcast and all that kind of stuff. So if you can go ahead and look that up, you will find him on all different platforms. And yeah, we will see you guys soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.